This is basically part 14, but from Damian's POV. The ride to Damian's home is silence. Every time he turns to her to talk, he can see her reaching up towards the top of her closet. The sliver of skin her shirt revealed was so tantalizing. Damian wanted to touch her so badly, and he still cannot get his mind off of it. And then she lost her balance. It was pure reflex that had him pull her against him. It was something else entirely that made him hold her closer and bury his nose in her dark curls. He simply couldn't withstand the temptation of touching that soft hair, and her scent is irresistible. After work, she smells of oil and hard work and temptation, but after a shower, she smells utterly divine. He can almost smell her right now, but that's wishful thinking. She hasn't been in his car long enough to leave it smelling like her. This is a spa? Ella sounds confused when they stop in front of Damian's high rise. The question comes out of nowhere after the silence, and Damian huffs out a laugh in surprise. No, I live here. I'm taking you to the in-house spa. Ella isn't paying attention, too busy staring up at the tall building. The valet is already rushing over when Damian climbs out of his car. Kevin is always so eager to do a good job. The valet has already opened the door to Ella by the time Damian has skirted the car to her side. Damn, Damian wanted to do that. He thanks Kevin anyway and hands over his key, along with a note. Keep the car close, I'll need it again soon. Kevin nods and puts the note in his back pocket without looking at it. Good. The kid has learned some subtlety since last time. Ella stares after the car as it leaves, a crease between her brows. She's never been this silent and still before. Ella is supposed to be in perpetual motion. Most of the time, she's brushing the curls escaping her ponytail away from her face, something that Damian has been wanting to do as well. Or she's tapping her fingers on any surface near her in no rhythm whatsoever. Now she's like a statue staring into nothing. It's unnerving, and Damian wants to snap her out of it. He could just talk to her, but he'd much rather put his arm around her and pull her close. So he does. She fits perfectly under his arm. When she doesn't immediately pull away, Damian starts pulling her towards the building. We do need to go inside. I made an appointment. Ella answers immediately with a distracted lilt to her voice. At your in-house spa? She flinches at her own words. The only reason Damian notices is because his arm is around her. He pulls her closer before he can think about it. And then he shrugs to hide the movement. There's no need for her to be aware of how much he wants to make her feel better. It's not mine, per se. It's one of the perks of living here. What are the other perks? Ella sounds softer now. She's not protesting the one-armed hug, so Damian pulls her closer once again. It's nice having her this close. It would take nothing at all for him to bury his face in her hair, if only he could justify the move. Damian answers her question absent-mindedly. He tells her about the view and the pool, but he's mostly focused on Frankie standing guard at the entrance. Damian throws a one-handed wave at him, and Frankie glances over towards Ella. He wasn't present when Uncle ordered her protection. It should be abundantly clear to him now that she is under their protection. Although Damian is going to have to spell out the real reason later, because that knowing smirk on the guard's face is sending the wrong message. Frankie nods slowly at Damian and taps his watch twice. Damian's stomach sinks. Something happened, and Damian will be forced to deal with it later. Annoyance bubbles up in his gut. All he wanted was a quiet day so he could get Ella to relax around him. Guess that isn't happening today. Damian motions that he'll be back later and continues walking as if nothing happened at all. They enter the hall, and Ella eyes the place as if it's a museum. The entrance hall is nothing special. Uncle makes a point of switching the painting behind the receptionist out every other week, but that's about it. This week, it's a blue painting that's supposed to look like the ocean, but is mostly just lines. Damian makes the mistake of glancing at the person below it and makes eye contact with Allison. She instantly quirks up with a wide smile and flutters her eyelashes at him. Damian doesn't scoff at the impudent cow. Reacting in any way just encourages her. He simply looks away. Ella doesn't. She keeps staring at Allison. Correction, she's glaring at the receptionist. Damian grins down at the top of Ella's head. She doesn't like seeing other women flirt with him? That's textbook jealousy, and it's immensely flattering. She also has nothing to be jealous of. The only person that has any cause to feel jealous is Allison. Damian's grin turns devious. How about he gives Allison something to actually be envious of? Damian pulls Ella closer and buries his nose in her soft, dark hair. Sweet flowers with a hint of oil. His lips brush the shell of her ear in a weak substitute of a kiss when he whispers to her, Ella, stop glaring at the staff. You're supposed to ignore them if you don't need them. Jackpot. From the corner of his eye, Damian can see Allison scowl and turn away. What is more interesting is the way Ella wrenches back to glare up at Damian. She's flushed red up to her ears as she tries to get out of his hold. Damian tightens his grip on her shoulder. She's not getting away yet. His hold makes Ella stop walking, and she hisses at him in a loud whisper, careful not to let anyone but him hear. They're supposed to be invisible. They shouldn't be. Ella waves at the receptionist behind them, who is staring at her desk, doing that. Damian stares at her for a moment. She's full of life again, eyes shining up at him and mouth parted slightly, and she's standing so close. He could bend down and kiss her without moving an inch. He makes fun of her instead. "Ah, you are jealous. How sweet of you." The indignation that twists Ella's features fill her with life and fire. It warms Damian's insides, and he stops resisting the urge to kiss her. He pulls her close again. She only puts up a token protest and presses his lips to her forehead. "I love you too, darling." The sarcastic comment doesn't have the effect he had hoped for. He was hoping to see her blush again, or maybe spit more fire at him. She's not. She's not reacting at all. Did he cross a line somewhere? He starts guiding Ella to the privacy of the side corridor leading to the wellness center, all the while running over his behavior of the last few minutes. He doesn't think he did anything too egregious. Ella snaps out of it by herself without any help from Damian once they are alone. She suddenly pushes him away, and Damian lets her. She goes on a whispered tirade, and Damian's smile grows. "I was not jealous. She was being rude. She's working. You don't flirt with a guy who's very clearly walking by with his girlfriend." Her chest is heaving with the restrained upset she's holding in. Damian smirks at her. "Whatever you say, Ella dearest." Ella opens her mouth, but the words don't seem to come. She simply gapes at him in outrage. Damian turns around to hide the way it makes him grin. He starts walking, and soon enough, Ella scoffs and rushes behind him with squeaking sneakers. "I didn't care that it was you in particular. It's the principle of the thing." Damian grins at her over his shoulder. She's back to her expressive self, the curls that are framing her face bouncing around as she speed walks behind him. He has no idea what he says to keep the discussion going, but it works. Ella keeps saying she isn't caring about the girl, flirting as if her arguments are somehow believable. Damian almost wants to let her win, just to see her gloat. That must be a sight to see. Before he can fully entertain the thought, the hostess of the spa leads them to their private room. Ella stays silent, and so does he. The moment the hostess leaves, Damian starts taking off his shirt. He's been looking forward to a good relaxing session for days, and today has just made his need for it more clear. Ella's not moving behind him. Maybe she doesn't know how these things go. Damian half turns around, ready to point out the empty chair on her side of the room, but he stops when he sees her. She's looking at him, her gaze caught for just a moment longer than necessary as her eyes trail down his torso. Damian's blood hums with the realization. He feels his lips curl into a grin, and he lets out a low chuckle, breaking the moment. Ella's face darkens with the faintest pink. Damian knows he shouldn't tease her, but it's too tempting. He points to the empty chair. "You can take that side if you're done staring." Ella's cheeks and neck flush, and she looks away from Damian. She bumps into the table and does a half twirl to right herself again. Damian laughs quietly, covering it with a cough as Ella throws an embarrassed glare his way. She tries to sound annoyed, but her voice comes out soft. "Do I? Take off everything?" Damian feels his heart race. He's grateful Ella isn't looking at him again, as it gives him a moment to compose himself. This was supposed to be a relaxed, friendly moment, not a situation where he was struggling to keep his composure. He clears his throat and shrugs, turning back to his chair. "Your choice. I wouldn't wear anything. It might get ruined." And just like that, his thoughts wander. Ella's still not looking at him, even when he carefully removes his belt, letting it fall to the floor. She almost glances at him, but stops herself just before doing so. Damian smiles to himself. He's not the only one feeling a little flustered. He needs her to look at him with that same curiosity again. You do need to take off at least some of your clothes. There's a towel on the table if you want to cover up. His words seem to work. Ella turns to grab the towel, and as she does, her gaze flicks towards him. Damian knows exactly how he must look right now. He smirks, slowly running his fingers across his stomach, and watches as Ella's eyes widen. Ella jumps, turning away quickly, a surprised sound escaping her. Damian can't help but laugh at her reaction. She huffs in indignation and almost turns back around but stops herself. Instead, she glares at her chair, trying to regain her composure. Damian's towel is already in place as he watches her, still enjoying the playful tension between them. "Stop toying with me," she says, her voice full of frustration. Damian grins at her back, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. "But you make it so easy." Ella spins around, ready to give him a piece of her mind, but her attention is quickly drawn to his arms and chest. Damian flexes, and he notices her gaze softening for a second. She looks up at his face, and they share a moment of quiet connection before Ella sighs and points at the wall. "I'm not going to undress with you watching me." Damian slowly stands, making a show of pushing off the wall and moving to sit on his table, back to Ella. "No problem." He hears her steady breathing and leans back, showing off his posture. "Don't worry, I won't sneak a look." Ella huffs, and Damian closes his eyes to respect her privacy. It makes it easier to imagine what she's doing behind him without actually watching her. He wonders if her shirt gets caught on her hair or if she's nervously looking around. He tries to distract himself by focusing on other things, but his thoughts keep returning to her. Ella clears her throat, pulling him out of his thoughts. "Right. I'm decent. Now what?" Damian turns around, his attention immediately drawn to the towel she's wearing. She looks even more striking up close. He quickly looks away, swallowing hard. He points toward the bathroom door. "I suggest going to the bathroom first. It's best not to disrupt things in the middle of a massage." Ella walks to the door and opens it, turning back to Damian, her face flushed with frustration. "I could have changed in there." Damian smiles, finding her anger charming. "Now, where would the fun be in that, love?" Ella groans and shuts the bathroom door behind her, just as the massage therapists knock. "One moment, please." Damian turns around on the table to face her, adjusting himself and hoping to compose himself before she returns. When she exits the bathroom later, she's calmer, though still a little embarrassed, but her lively personality is back. She's frowning at the situation, trying to figure out what to do next. "You should lay down and take the towel out from under you." Ella starts to move but pauses, hesitating again. Damian gets up to help. "Just lay down, and I'll take care of it for you." She looks up at him with wide eyes, and he can't help but feel protective. He feels the urge to comfort her and brush a kiss on her forehead, but stops himself. After her reaction last time, he's determined not to make her uncomfortable. Instead, he gestures toward the towel. "If I may?" Ella hesitates, but then nods. She lays down, and Damian gently undoes the knot she made with the towel. His fingers brush against her skin, and while the temptation to touch her further is strong, he remembers that they are here to build trust. He focuses on that goal, not letting his desire distract him. He'll wait for the right time.